Hello everyone, thank you for the introduction. My name is Isaac. I'm one of the co-founders of HonestBee. We are same-day grocery delivery service based in Singapore. One of the reasons why I'm in Ho Chi Minh is I'm looking to build an engineering team here, so this topic is very close to my heart. So to kick off the panel discussion, what happens is each of the panelists will give a 1-minute introduction of themselves and what they do in Vietnam. So Francis, could you start first?
My name is Francis Nguyen. I'm actually born as I'm a Vietnamese. I moved to the US in '75 and I came back to Vietnam in 2002. My only reason for coming back is to help build the IT industry in Vietnam, and I think I have successfully done that over the last 14 years. Thank you.
Hey, my name is Jonas Eichhorst. I'm originally from Germany, but have been in sort of this part of the world for the past 8-9 years, building products, product teams. And about 1.5 years ago, I came to Vietnam for a consulting job originally, helped out with Silicon Straits, which some of you may know is both an investment company as well as a product development company. And now for the past roughly 18 months have been the CEO of, by now we're about 90 people here over in District 7.
I don't have a microphone yet, but soon. My name is Marcus Ellison. I'm a co-founder of Coder School. I've built a number of startups before. I'm an engineer and also entrepreneur. Before Vietnam, I worked with a startup in San Francisco, and we trained engineers at like Facebook, Airbnb, Uber, Lyft, and basically like Fortune 15 tech companies. My most recent company over there I was working with was actually designing onboarding training for engineers at Walmart. And Coder School in Vietnam, we do 8-week in-person classes, and our mission is to build the best engineers in the world. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bee. I'm the founder of BCA Studio. So I have 10 years experience in Singapore as a graphic designer, and I started my own one-stop solution agency in 2011. We were not only a mobile development agency, we also a graphic design and marketing agency as well. So we work with many startups in Singapore, Korea, and the UK, and helping them to localize their products in Vietnam markets and grow their business as well.
So thank you, panelists. So let's start by asking, what does it mean for Vietnam to be competitive? Is it cost? Is it speed? Is it quality? And Francis, you've been here the longest, so maybe we'll hear from you.
So I'm actually, the Vietnam competitive advantage is lie in its people. I'm very proud of Vietnamese, and I'm very proud of the power of the Vietnamese intellect. And I think that the only thing that Vietnam lacked is opportunity. And that's one of the reasons why I came back in 2002 is to create. The only difference that I see between the Vietnamese and the Vietnamese overseas is a lack of opportunity. And the reason why Vietnamese people also have the competitive advantage is because we are very hardworking, we're very bright, we're intelligent. Now what we don't have, which is what I try to change over the last try to help over the last 2 years, is that we lack entrepreneurship training, we lack the ability to do a good business plan, and we lack the ability to know how to go to market. But the rest we have. And I'm very proud of the power of the Vietnamese intellect. That's our competitive advantage.
So thank you, Francis. So talking about opportunities and education, let's ask the two gentlemen from overseas, right? Whichever one of you want to start first. How does your presence in Vietnam help both opportunities and education? So maybe Marcus, you look ready to go.
Sure. So our mission is to build engineers. So far we've, as of December 8th, we will have trained over 250 engineers. And for us, our goal is to not just introduce engineers to the latest technologies, but also to a Western way of building products. So how this manifests in our classes is we actually have engineers not just learn a new language, but then also incorporate product-based thinking within the training. Engineers will come up with an idea and actually turn it into almost like a mini startup, which they will present on our demo day. Our next one is actually December 8th, so keep that in mind. And so this gives engineers an opportunity not just to work on interesting technology or to meet really talented engineers, but also to experience the entire product development lifecycle which is something that is often lacking.
Right. So Jonas.
I think I would second what Francis said, that the Vietnamese people, the intellect and the culture actually is what I see as one of the competitive edges in terms of a culture which values education. Now, at the same time, I think what you guys are doing with sort of applying the guidance and the finish is very, very important, because what I see is a lot of raw talent and I see a lot of hunger and appetite, but sometimes some of the kind of more experienced processes, there's little experience in building products at real Silicon Valley scale, for example. And so I think that's something which hopefully Silicon Straits with our projects we can change over the next years, and getting more guys from you guys, for example, that we can kind of work on that, because that's what we see really as the missing piece.
Sorry. Yes, Marcus.
I want to answer that competitive advantage question. So I'll be a little bit contrarian. I don't think that Vietnam has an absolute competitive advantage in talent, but I think that regionally we do. And I think that there's the potential for engineers to be the best in the world. But I was in San Francisco last week talking to a number of sort of like YC startups. Their question actually is only how good are the engineers? So in order for engineers in Vietnam to work at the top technology companies in the world, price does not matter. It's nice, like it's a good value, but what matters is the ability to execute and to communicate effectively. And so I think focusing on that, yeah, Vietnam can create like more of an absolute competitive advantage, but it comes down to, as Jonas said, like a proper like mentorship and nurturing.
Sophie, you work in Singapore for a while, and I think about quite a while, and you come back to Vietnam. How is Vietnam more competitive than Singapore, or better, or?
I think in terms of being an entrepreneur, Vietnam is the perfect place for bootstrappers, for people who really want to try out, explore their business ideas, because we have like really competitive workforce labor, and then we also have very open markets, very young demographics, and also I think there's a lot of things about Vietnamese community that if I'm in Singapore and I'm a Vietnamese, it's very tough for me to start my own business. But when I'm coming back here as a returnee and I have a lot of advantage, people here are really friendly. Most of my business is actually referral, and we introduce each other's, we're helping each other's a lot in businesses. So the Vietnamese communities are actually very strong and helping each other. So I think as an entrepreneur from Vietnam, we're starting the business in my home country, I feel that I have a lot of advantage. And foreigners, when you come in, we are very friendly as well. So I think we are like introducing a lot of resources and connections out of willingness. So that's why it's very easy to start a business in Vietnam. But how far and how big you can grow your business is another story.
Right, so that's interesting because you're from Microsoft, and I think Silicon Straits, I don't know whether you can still call yourself a startup anymore. You guys have grown quite a bit. How are you guys getting involved in pushing the startups and the talent to not just build, but to test and to scale? Maybe someone from a Microsoft perspective.
So we started by, so the first thing is that while the students are in school, we give them free software. Right, so to the Dreams, the old program called DreamSmart, the new program called Imagine, right? We give them free software to all of the STEM school, so that they can get used to the software. And then after they graduated from school, we give them BSmart, right? Which is again software and cloud to be able to start their own business. And then about August of 2015, we started the first Microsoft Accelerator in Vietnam. Okay, and the purpose of that is to focus on the top 20% of the startup. So it's a very competitive program, right? But it's also very successful because in the first batch, for example, 7 out of 7 get offer for funding, right? That's 100% funding rate out of an accelerator. But we only focus on the top 20 and we really filter the people. So like in the second batch, we have 130 plus company apply. We only select 32% and we bring into the accelerator only 13 out of 13, 5 only get funded. Okay, so we hope that the last part of this, the accelerator is very important because it is in there that we allow company to improve their MVP, to basically have a perfect business plan, and then also help them to connect to the investor, and finally, but also very importantly, if their products are relevant to Vietnam, Microsoft itself, with all its global presence, will help them go to market. That's very key. And
So I'm going to jump back to one point because you mentioned that Microsoft had an accelerator and 5 out of 5. Microsoft has presence worldwide, so Silicon is regional. You mentioned something like regionally Vietnam has. But as a company from Singapore, I'm looking to expand. I mean, when I go to Bangkok, people tell me the same thing, that the Thais are hardworking. When I go to Cambodia, people tell me the Cambodians are hardworking. So, I mean, beyond just the perception, what's the reality? Like, hardworking is not just enough. Every country says that their people are hardworking and everything. So why? I mean, let's go in. What do you mean by hardworking? Marcus and Jonas. I mean, Marcus, since you said it, I'm going to throw the ball to you.
Sure. So I guess the question is, what about Vietnam is a unique place to create great developers? So I think it actually starts with an emphasis on, so the culture is community. There's a huge emphasis on education, and science and technology, Vietnamese score extremely high. So it actually creates a really good foundation to create really, really great engineers. Right now, I think there's like 100,000 engineers available. Well, not quite available, but around.
I'd like to see that.
Someplace. Trapped in companies. But so I think that's what Vietnam offers. I would say, so in our classes, right, we don't cater to just beginners. We have average ages like 25, 26. We have both former CTOs of funded startups that are taking our classes, as well as like college students. And what's been extremely impressive is that a lot of times the college students outperform engineers with like 6 years, 8 years of experience, because they have this really, really strong curiosity, and they have no bias in sort of like jumping in and having the right expectation set. So for me, one of my criticisms with companies that have, I would say, like incomplete training or development programs is that they don't properly challenge engineers. The first job, like out of college, really sets the tone for the speed of like learning that needs to develop. And I think depending on where you work, you can fall into a groove, and then that learning does not continue at the same pace.
Sophie, do you have something to add about that?
Yeah, I mean, add on to the hardworking part. I mean, I think that Vietnamese developers, not necessarily the most hardworking people that I ever experienced over the 5 years, but I think they are the most eager to learn. Meaning that my team member, even they have a day job, and after job, they still apply to Coder School or other school to learn more, because I think the education system here, we don't get to learn updated technology. So a lot of students or like fresh grad engineer that we hire doesn't have the skill set we need. So a lot of training is needed, a lot of education, hands-on, project-based needed. So that's why they're very eager to learn on internet, self-learning. A lot of developers that I hire is actually self-learn, self-study, and have real working experience. And they even drop out from school because I think they cannot learn the new technology.
Right.
So I think Vietnamese developers are very eager to learn. And more than...
So Jonas, I think Silicon Straits has something to talk about employing people and teaching them at the same time. So
Yeah, so I mean, I agree that Vietnamese people, of course, always want to learn and they try and improve. But a little bit to your point of that's what you hear everywhere worldwide. And in technology especially, because you have so much online learning going on, you will find smart people everywhere. What I think makes a big difference is not only the raw talent and the guidance they get, but then also the opportunities that they work on. So in an earlier career, I was working in a big airline, in a huge MNC, and those 5 years shaped my thinking. Those 5 years formed me as a person, and any startup I ever touch will benefit from the way that I saw big corporations and big processes work. Likewise, if we look at Silicon Straits, for example, we started out doing a lot of small MVP work, and I think we're now at probably 140, 150 different products that we've built over the past 3 years. But from a certain point on, in order to further learn, you need to actually work on bigger things and more impactful projects. and not kind of keep doing the same thing over and over again. And that's again a little bit to your point around the cost being here very low. It's actually very dangerous in Vietnam because you can survive off very little. You can freelance as a developer on the side a little bit, and you can kind of do your own thing without actually really knowing what you're doing, and actually wasting quite a bit of time that way, when it would be better to pay your money to this guy, sign up there and learn for a few months, work for somebody who really knows what he does for 2-3 years, and then kind of re-enter entrepreneurship at a completely different level.
So my understanding would be the cost is the low labor cost is what allows all the engineers and the talent here to have a wider range of projects and a bigger exposure, so that they will be able to do more and then learn, and it fits in with the hunger of the Vietnamese who are constantly trying to learn. Now, as a potential employer, right, if my guys are spending a lot of time learning and so hungry to learn, and we're investing a lot of time in training them, what's the risk? I mean, would they jump ship the minute they say, I've learned enough, I'm going to leave and everything? And so, there needs to be a certain amount of stability in the company. One of the feedback that I've got when I was trying to hire here is that people move around a lot, and it's very hard to have stability at its core. Do you guys have any thoughts about that? Francis, you look like you're going to say something.
I disagree with that because before joining Microsoft, I actually ran a company for 7 years, and I do not lost a single of the 70 employees. In fact, I was told by my HR manager that it's very difficult for an employee to try to approach you to tell you that they want to change job. So I think it's very important that you treat your employee, you provide an environment where there's a lot of innovation and opportunity for learning. You provide your employee a lot of freedom, but then that freedom comes with responsibility, because a lot of companies do not manage. And then the last one is actually very important, that you manage by example. If a company meets all those 3 criteria, I think the employee will stay. Innovation, freedom and responsibility, and management by example. I never ask my people to do anything that I'm not willing to do. Even when you have to move office, I'm the one to be there at 7, 8 a.m. in the morning, and they come, right? So I don't think that, I think the reason why Vietnamese people move around, and not all of them, but some of them move around because of money, but the lot of them, if they have the right environment, they will stay. And I actually know a lot of people who are employers, many employees here, like Dr. La, he knows how to keep employees. So I don't think it's that.
Right, thank you, Francis. That's really excellent advice for all of us here who are trying to build a company. Do you guys have anything to add about that? I mean, Jonas and V.
No, I agree 100% with what Francis says. And if you look at it again, it's everywhere the case, because employees are in short supply and there's massive demand. And one of the luxuries in Vietnam is that if you pay people properly, they can have a very, very good life, and you're still very cost competitive.
Right.
So then the increment is not that big of a deal, but how you treat people and the opportunities you give them and the whole learning, that's really what is much more valuable.
V?
I mean, of course, I agree, and it's very ideal scenario. However, if for a new company, a startup, like nobody knows about a company, it's much harder to actually retain the developers. They feel like part of the family, the kind of when we start something together and then we grow it together. It's like the company culture is the most important thing that we think to keep the developers. But also, to me, I feel like with the startups level that we are, I'm looking to grow my company further, of course, but for the developer, the opportunity to work for like more big players, international companies is the opportunity. So we feel like we provide training, we train them up, we more than welcome for them to actually be more successful and grow after 2-3 years working with us. We don't want them to like stay with us forever, have all the right to move. And the end of the day is that whether they appreciate the lessons or the experience that have in our company. So I think it's almost impossible for a startup for us to keep them to stay 17 years. For me, it's mission impossible. If I'm Microsoft or Google, maybe I can do that.
So Francis?
I actually disagree here. We have a few companies in the Microsoft Accelerator who's basically able to keep the employees. And the key thing here, you have to paint the right vision. If your vision for your company is big enough, here does not mean necessarily financially, but big enough in terms of what your company will do for Vietnam, what your company will do for a particular industry, and you get buy-in from the people to do that, then they will stay. You have to get buy-in from the people to your vision. If a company is just a company just to pay the employee, there's only employer-employee relationship, we never succeed. So that is a key thing. The reason why the 70 employee does not leave me for 7 years is not because I pay them a lot. In fact, I pay them only the industry average, but they believe in my vision. And my vision is to help build the best company possible, to prove that the Vietnamese engineers are the smartest engineer in the whole global setup. We have many subsidiaries, so they believe in that. That's why they stay for 7 years. It's not because of what I pay them. And it's not because I'm big, because that was a company, in the US it's only like a 200 people company, and in Vietnam it's 70. So they didn't stay with me because I'm big, because I'm well known, because I pay them, but because they believe in my vision. That is very key.
Thank you, Francis. Marcus, just wondering, as an educator, where do you see the inefficiencies in the talent pipeline for employers like Francis, Jonas, and Envy? What's right and what's wrong, and how are you helping to improve it?
So one problem that companies have hiring is that there's vast inconsistency among title versus talent, what you actually did on the job. So the title of senior engineer actually means very different things depending on which company you're working at. Aside from that, there seems to be lots of gaps in working structure. I mean, it could be like project management or the level of rigor around executing code. I mean, is there like a process of testing code and proper quality assurance? So I think that this is actually, I'd say it's a critique at many companies that there may be very talented engineers, but they are missing gaps that prevents them from being a productive member of a team.
So Jonas, Silicon Shades, how have you been helping in that part of the training?
I mean, I 100% agree with what he's saying. The way how we do it is, of course, over the years we've grown and we look at other companies and how they do it, but we also bring in some people from around the world and try and hook up with them, including just recently we had a guy from Silicon Valley join us with 20 years of experience in building kind of software, large-scale systems and all of that. And it is exactly as you say, it's the process, it's sort of that piece which really is missing. If we're smart but we don't know what we're doing, we may figure it out eventually, but it's very, very, very inefficient. And a little bit of guidance goes a long way.
Right.
Last week I was in San Francisco. I was talking with engineering managers at different companies. So I was talking with an engineering manager that manages the Apple Maps. And I was very curious about sort of how do you ensure quality? How do you measure velocity in your engineering team? And this is a global pain point because they're in a place like Silicon Valley where there is a lot of great leadership, but there's also the process is very artistic, ad hoc, kind of like leave them alone, and then they kind of will sprout this amazingly creative code. And so there's actually more pressure on a place like Vietnam to have consistent structure to build trust and credibility.
So it sounds like what you just shared is there's a certain amount of work that still needs to get the technical talent to a level of competency that's world-class standard and consistency. But competency doesn't just give you a competitive advantage, right? I mean, people say you need to be innovative, you need to create new ideas. Is that really true, or could just at this point in time in Vietnam's history, it's just enough to be competent, do something and do it well, and not be super creative, like create React or Redux or Rails, or create new stacks? What do you think?
Well, we've been sounding a little bit negative about Vietnam in the last 10 minutes, and let me be very frank here. I've been in this part of the world for the past 10 years almost, and I've worked with almost all different countries, and Vietnam still is by far my most favorite place to work and to try and build a team. So we've been focusing a lot on the problems, but with a little bit of guidance, for me that's kind of it, taking something which has a lot of raw talent and is already good to great. And you look even at Silicon Valley, how many companies really are doing rocket science? even there, most of the engineering is kind of integrating a bunch of rocket science technologies maybe, but it's still relatively basic engineering, but which is executed very well. And if Vietnam, with a little bit of guidance, if we can get to that level, that is a huge competitive advantage, which in this entire part of the world, I don't see any other country which is there.
So our curriculum is currently in use at Facebook and Airbnb. So the exact same course, like our iOS course, is being taken by Airbnb engineers and also engineers in Vietnam. So we can actually benchmark. And so to second Jonas's point, like engineers in Vietnam are as good as like engineers anywhere in the world. Very specific example, the teacher for our Android class is 21 years old. He originally applied for our Android class, and he was just like way too good. If you look at his GitHub, it's like phenomenal. He is one of the best engineers we've ever come across, like anywhere in the world.
Is he looking for a job on demo day?
He's you can try to convince him. But just to say that there are, I mean, the CTO of Uber is, you know, a Vietnamese guy. Like you have phenomenal talent. It's just when we were critical, I think it's more so saying like the average can be brought higher, but there are phenomenal rock stars.
So I know we've been talking a lot from an engineering perspective, but your company also does a lot of design stuff. So how is the other aspects, you know, project management and design? How do you see that in Vietnam?
Well, I mean, in terms of design and UX, UI, and creative, I think Vietnam has a lot of potential as well because opportunity to do more international design style. Most of the designer doesn't have it. Like RMIT students, where we have a lot of designer that we hire from them, they're kind of more international and they get the right taste. But the local designer and creative, I think they have great skill set. They just lack of the experience to, you know, understand about the international taste. So what I'm doing is just mentoring them and showing them how to do a right research, you know, looking at the right materials, styling, and everything. And they're picking up really fast. So like my designer, it just graduate. I train them for like 6 months to 1 year. Their portfolio improve a lot more. So when I look at the raw, you know, the talents and the portfolio before they join the company, you kind of see more of the skill set, the knowledge that they learn more than, you know, the work that they produce. So I think for Vietnam, more on the project manager is a little bit harder. For me, it's a challenge role to hire. One of the most challenging role because management is not easy in Vietnam to find one that have a good mentality and organized mindset and know how to talk to people, understand technology because we technology company. So a lot of developers like, oh, you are really good. I think you have like organized your code well. You have, but they don't have leadership. So they like to learn more and to be a better coder, but they don't like to be a team leader. So for us, finding PM and team leader in a tech company is really hard. So that's why the pricing and the salary also extremely high too, right?
So I guess one of the questions I have is that I think one of the booster for the Vietnam competitive advantage is the cost, and you bring in the opportunities and the hunger, and people start learning more and doing better. But with that, as the economy develops, you know, salary rises, people become less hungry. We've seen this in other economies, there's stagnation. So what do you think what's the cautionary tale? Like what would derail this competitive advantage and the growth of the technical talent in Vietnam as, you know, wages rise, as people get less hungry? Or is that not going to happen anytime soon? Francis?
So you really need to think long term. So the way that most companies come into Vietnam, the way that they get people is they go and hire people from one company and they bring it to their company. If they can rob it from Peter, Peter can rob it from Paul. So this is not going to work. So you have to create an environment where basically you raise people when they were young. So an example, I'm not going to mention any name, but like you go to 3-year school. You pick the top student from the 3-year school, you send them to full university for full scholarship. While they're in school, you basically give them internship, and after they have finished school, you ship them back to the place where they originate. Because a lot of Vietnamese people, especially in the central of Vietnam, they prefer to work where their family is. So long-term sustainable policy as opposed to just short-term for profit only kind of thing. That will sustain the momentum of Vietnam. Okay.
Got it. So I guess you're actually warning me not to keep poaching people, but actually once I'm here to start being part of the training and the growing of the pool of developers. Good point, Francis. Jonas.
I mean, I think exposure, as you said, as a designer is really key, which is lacking here, international exposure. And for me, one of the real big sort of eye-opening experiences was Foodie. When Foodie raised around last year, and I looked them up and I had just moved to Vietnam, I thought this is great, because Silicon Straits is actually an investor in Burple, something similar, and I thought, oh, yeah, let's check it out. And it's only Vietnamese. It was at that point, after it raised, I forgot the amount, but it was 10 million or whatever, and it could do so with an only Vietnamese website, not even English. And so that's when we look at a lot of the talent, kind of an exposure problem, that with a bit more of international exposure, that again leads to sort of an upgrading of a talent pool. However, what has happened over the past year or so is that a lot of companies from Singapore have been looking here and have started to really increase their salaries drastically.
Right.
And that could potentially cause problems when salaries all of a sudden raise so quickly that the quality and the exposure doesn't grow at the same speed, that then all of a sudden Vietnam gets a reputation of being very expensive and low quality because it kind of gets ahead of itself a little bit.
I'm feeling out of two. Maybe I should not really have said that. I was going to try to hire. But okay, Marcus, I'm going to make it 3 out of 3.
Sure. So I don't think price is a sustainable competitive advantage. I fully expect more companies from around the world to hire Vietnamese engineers, and you already see if you look at like how much engineers are paid, you have some companies that pay like quite a bit because they can. I'm not going to name companies, but coming from like Silicon Valley and have like billionaire backers, and so they actually will probably look at whatever is top of market and then like double that. And so I think what you can expect is that engineering salaries will completely outpace like GDP growth. Like it's going to grow much faster. I think in terms of talking what's more sustainably competitive is, I mean, I'm not biased, but investment in education, training programs, and I think particularly like developing like just world-class expertise. For Vietnam to be known in those sectors is, I think, the most powerful thing.
I totally agree with Jonas about the bubbles around the salaries and the quality of the developers. And education, training is very important. There isn't any really like professional school. Hello? Yeah, so I think Marcus, you guys are really important for contribute to the growth of Vietnamese developers ecosystem. So I think training, educations, if we improve that, instead of improving like double the salary and not focusing on training, it's going to kill the Vietnam's competitive advantage.
Francis.
So I think the bubble are self-created. So this is my plea to all of the employer. Don't break the salary curve of Vietnam, because if one person does it, others will do it, and very soon Vietnam will be non-competitive. So the bubble is self-created, right? So don't go steal people from other company by raising their salary above the norm, right? So we at Microsoft, we know whenever there's a newcomer come into Vietnam because they have to buy our development tool. So when they come and buy our development tool, we know this is a new company, and then we find out.
Why don't you do dynamic pricing, right? So if you're going to raise the salary by double, I'm going to charge you double the software cost.
So then whenever they do that, we know they hire people, and then we ask what salary they're willing to pay, so we know. And then, so there was a Japanese company coming into Da Nang, and it was just like going to steal company from other company, and I came and I basically talked to the CEO and said, this is not long-term sustainable because X, Y, Z. So don't contribute to the bubble. maintain the salary standards of Vietnam and don't just go steal people and think long term.
Sorry, Jonas.
I do have one additional thing to say on that, that actually also as managers, leaders, whatever, we do have a responsibility also to explain to people that taking a double salary offer today but working for a company where you don't learn, where you don't get the guidance is actually not a good long-term advantage strategy for an employee itself either. Because we do see that also a lot, that companies come in here, offer double, triple salary, but if you explain to employees this is actually what you get if you work somewhere where you learn, if you're very mission driven and all of that, in the long run it actually is a better deal for you. We do see quite a bit of maturity also in the Vietnamese ecosystem here, but it is our responsibility to educate also around those factors.
Would I be right to say that in the long term as well, not all jobs are secure, and if you get too high a salary where your skill sets are not commensurate to that, the next time you need to find another job, people go, you're overpriced, I don't understand why. And so you may only be thinking for yourself as an employee only for the next 2 or 3 years, but you may be derailing your whole career, right? So the session's about to end, and before we end, maybe we start with V and we go down this way and end with Francis. What's your own personal vision for your company and for the Vietnam technical tech landscape?
Okay, that's very sudden start from me. Okay. For our company, because over the years we work with many startups, international startups, we find that what is needed for local startups to make a difference is that the understanding of balance between technologies and business. So I believe that a lot of what we can contribute only on the technology side, but understanding of the local market, the market inside, the opportunities, the connections that we have. So we want to be the bridge to connect a lot of overseas startups, actually to expand. Hello. So connecting a lot of overseas startups to expand their business to Vietnam and grow their business together. So we become more than just an agency, but their partner as well. So we hope to work with many overseas startups and companies and expand and grow their business together in Vietnam, and that's the vision for our company. And for the developers or for the tech talents, I would already share the similar opinions with everyone. I think first is to focus to improve your technical skill set and your also the mindset of like the working skills, working ethic. To believe that in order to be a good developer, it's not only about having a good skill, but also having a good working attitude. So that's my.
Thank you, V. Marcus?
Sure. Okay. So Coder School Phase 1 was or is happening right now, and that is in-person classes. Phase 2 for Coder School has started happening as well, and we've been working with startups regionally and around the world to have our engineers working on projects. It's our idea that engineers in Vietnam should work with the best people in the world wherever they are. So for us, this looks like 6 months to 1 year programs. Our classes are not enough, they're only 8 weeks. After that, they can be invited into these programs, work with the best people in the world, and then recycle back into the ecosystem. So the vision for Coder School is actually to expose engineers to as high quality engineering environments, working with non-trivial applications, so that they can become absolutely, like, without a doubt, the best in the world, and have that recycle into the ecosystem.
Thank you, Marcus. Jonas?
So for Silicon Straits, we come originally from an investment background, looking at startup companies and investing into them. But in reality, the world doesn't have a shortage of capital, it doesn't have a shortage of good ideas, it has a shortage of executional skills. So the vision for Silicon Straits really is that we create this organization, this motor, which we can use to execute all these different ideas that we come across, whether it's startup, whether it's corporate innovation, and we know that out of this Vietnam engine we have the whole ability to build the product, and we can raise money, we can invest ourselves into that, but really to make things grow big and not just play around at the MVP stage for a few months.
Thank you, Jonas. Francis?
So Microsoft Vietnam has a tagline, and that tagline is very simple: empower Vietnam digital generation to do more. So I will not stop until the next Uber, the next Facebook, whatever come from Vietnam.
Thank you,
That's
Francis.
my dream and my hope.
Thank you, Francis. Can you please give a hand to our panelists, V, Marcus, Jonas, and Francis? Thank you, everyone.